Hello, everybody. So I'm back. So I found something interesting on the Idaho State website. So we're coming upon deadlines, and one of the deadlines is the motions to suppress, and those are due on November 14th, 2024. So the motion to suppress are going to be based on affidavits for search warrants and the arrest warrant, which would include the probable cause affidavit. So, those are going to be scrutinized heavily, I believe. So the probable cause affidavit, the main things are the car and the video of the car, or lack thereof of the video, the eyewitness statement by DM, and the trace or transfer DNA on the sheath. So one of the things regarding how they were able to get the sheath DNA or touch DNA to match Brian Kohberger was done through this ancestry DNA or IgG DNA. So one of the issues with this DNA is the short tandem repeat, the STR. And I guess it's a term that refers to DNA sequence where a short sequence of DNA is repeated multiple times. Now, I learned this way back when, a year ago. I mean, I knew it. I can't retain that much now. But there are procedures with regard to handling this type of DNA. And certain tests that are done on certain machines regarding this DNA have to be calibrated or have to be validated. And that's where something interesting came up. So I looked up the state lab procedures and the validations for tests regarding DNA generally. And let me just show you what I found. I'm going to share the screen here. See if I can do that. Okay, so this is the Idaho State Patrol Laboratory. It's the Idaho State Patrol Laboratory. That means the Idaho State Patrol, if they come into evidence, they send it to the laboratory. I don't know. But in any event, I wanted to show you the date. The date here is November 2022. That's the month and the year that the Idaho 4 crimes were committed. And so the introduction to this document says, this document describes the determination of laboratory-specific parameters within the STR mix V2.9.1 for the Idaho State Patrol Crime Laboratory, hereinafter ISP. So it says parameters have been previously determined for the STR mix V2.3 and PowerPlex 16 PP16 data generated within ISP. So this, and I'm going to skip the next sentence, but the last sentence says the data presented in this report is for an upgrade to STR mix V29.1 for PP16 data separated on genetic analyzer 3130 CE instruments. Okay, so I'm not sure what all this means, but what I can gather from this is that there are parameters that have to be set by the user. So the user has to set certain parameters. So there you go with user error. It could be, there might be an error with the parameters set by the user, but in any event, that's one point I wanted to make. And the parameters are listed. There's 6 parameters. And it says these parameters need to be defined for each STR kit. So interestingly enough, this report is signed. So it's a very scientific study on the validity of the procedures and machine used to test the DNA and the STR DNA. And let's see. And it's signed by Taylor Maychak or Maychak. But it doesn't have a date, like a specific date. And I could not find a date on this document. So I don't know if this was done before November 13th, 2022 or after. And I don't know if it makes a difference, but I just find it strange that the date is November 2022 and there's nothing more specific. Now, with that said, the next thing I found, and I'm going to post the link to the Idaho State Forensic Lab website that has all of these validations on various machines, because they switched machines, it seems like. And I'm not an expert in this, and I don't even want to pretend I am. But anyway, this is the next document I found. This is the Idaho State Police Laboratory, STR mix V2 9.1. And the date on this is December 2022. And once again, it has the same parameters where the user has to set the parameters. There's the parameters. They're pretty much kind of like the same. I mean, I really don't know, but parameters need to be set. And the parameters need to be defined for each STR kit. So, and interestingly enough, let's see, where is this? The signature doesn't have a date. Oh, there it is. Okay. The signature here says December 2022, but there's no date. It just says Taylor Maychak, the DNA technical lead. So the conclusion on this document in December 2022, we don't know if it was before Brian Koberger was a suspect or after. And it says this document describes the upgrade and performance check of STR mix V291 and the Fusion 6C kit with data generated within the ISP laboratory. It has been shown that it is suited for its intended use for the interpretation of profiles generated from crime scene samples. So anyway, I don't know if this is relevant to anything regarding the IgG DNA that was taken from the sheath, but it does say that this work has, at the bottom, it says this work has been reviewed and it has been determined that the STR mix V2 9.1 is suitable for its intended use for interpretation of crime profiles within the ISP. The project work has met the validation requirements as required by, looks like A2LA and FBI QAS. I don't know. I don't know if the prosecution would want to use this and say, yes, the validation of the STR kits that are put in this machine or tested by this machine were working, and so this is a valid sample. It was tested. I don't know. And again, I probably sound strange because I'm not an expert in DNA. I'm just looking at the documents and what I think I would look at when it comes to these motions to suppress, because part of what led to the arrest of Brian Koberger was the IgG DNA on the sheath. And I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but the sheath contained trace DNA evidence that was then turned into STR. See, I don't know. Can't remember. But anyway, the STRs are relevant. I do remember that. And so I found this and I thought it would be very interesting to talk about it because it might have to do with something to do with the 3 male DNA samples that were found. Now, I remember that Bill Thompson said that in a hearing that those 3 DNA samples weren't qualified to be tested or something to that effect. They weren't qualified to be tested. And I remember blurting out, what does that mean? Why aren't they qualified? And nobody asked that question, so we don't know. But I suspect that in the motions to suppress, something's going to come up with regard to the IgG and how they got to Brian Koberger. And I suspect that maybe these validation reports are relevant, maybe to help the prosecution or maybe to help the defense. I'm not sure. But I wanted to bring it to you all's attention because maybe somebody out there knows something about this and can educate us on what this might mean. But I did also find that the Idaho State Forensics Lab has a bunch of procedures regarding collecting evidence, and it also names a computer system that is used to log and make sure that the evidence has a chain of custody. And so that might be for another video. But for right now, I just thought this was interesting. And I thought, maybe the validity of the Idaho State Forensics Lab might be an issue, because that's where I would look to try to maybe discredit how they did the DNA, how they handled the touch DNA that was on the sheath. Because something tells me that even though the IgG may not be introduced in court and the prosecution is saying it's irrelevant, I have a feeling that it may not be relevant for trial, but it is relevant for a motion to suppress. Because if you take the PCA, what led to the arrest, it was the video of the car, or lack thereof, I say, because now I don't know if there is a video. I don't think there is. Payne testified that there wasn't, I thought. And then the eyewitness statement by DM, which is just basically bushy eyebrows, athletically built, but maybe 5'8", 6 feet. And then the transfer DNA in the sheath. And so I did a video on Brian Koberger's arrest in Pennsylvania. And one of the factors that led to his being arrested the way he was under the fugitive statute was you had to have something connecting him to the crime. And it was the match of the genealogy DNA that connected him to the crime. And so that's what they used to arrest him under the fugitive statute. At least that's my understanding. Although I don't think he was a fugitive. And if you look at the rule or the factors that involve arresting somebody under the fugitive statute, it doesn't apply. But I did that on another video, so you can take a look at that if you want. But in any event, I thought this was interesting, the dates when they did this validation of these tests. Now, I didn't go back to see if there were other validations. As far as I know, these are the only ones that were done. I didn't see anything going back, but these were the most recent ones done, and they were done in November and December of 2022. And it's interesting that Brian Koberger's touch DNA was collected at some point in time in those months. So in any event, so those are my thoughts. Let me see if I missed anything. And I'm going to post the links to the reports and a whole bunch of other stuff on the Idaho Forensics Lab, and also a STR article in the description box if you want to check those sites out. And Anyway, those are my thoughts, and I'm certainly not an expert in DNA or anything like that, but I just went to the first thing that I would look at as an attorney to see if anything could be invalidated insofar as how the DNA, how the touch DNA on the sheath was collected, processed. And there are certain rules beyond what the FBI has. And that'll be another video, but you might want to check out the Idaho State Forensics Lab website. It has a lot of information. Anyway, I thought this was interesting. Let me know what you think. Thanks. I'll see you guys in the next video.